He held my hand before my cancer surgery and said, "I'll never leave your side." Then, while I was on the operating table having a double mastectomy, he was having sex with my physical therapist in the hospital parking garage. And when I recovered his deleted messages weeks later, I found him asking her, "How long does chemo usually take to kill someone?" He was waiting for me to die so he could collect my $2 million life insurance and run away with her. But what this cheating monster didn't know was that I'm a survivor. And I don't just survive cancer, I survive betrayal. And I make sure the people who betray me regret every single breath. Hey everyone, it's Grandma, and I need to warn you, this story is going to absolutely devastate you before it gives you the most satisfying justice you've ever witnessed. We're talking about a cancer patient, a cheating husband, a predatory physical therapist, and revenge so complete it destroyed 2 lives forever. Before we get into this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because stories like this need to be told. And when we're done, I want you to comment the word survivor too. Honor every person who's fought cancer and betrayal. Your support means everything. Alright, let's talk about Diane and the day she discovered her 40-year marriage was a lie. This story is about a woman named Diane, 62 years old, married to her high school sweetheart, Robert, for 40 years. 40 years. They met when she was 16 and he was 18, married at 22, built a life together, raised 2 kids, grandchildren, the whole American dream. And then Diane got the diagnosis. Stage 3 breast cancer, aggressive, needed immediate treatment, double mastectomy, then chemo, then radiation. The whole nightmare. Robert was there when the doctor gave her the news. He held her hand while she cried. He told her, "We'll fight this together. I'll never leave your side. We've been through everything together for 40 years. This is just one more thing we'll beat." Diane believed him completely. When you've been married for 40 years, you trust that person with your life. She thought Robert was her rock, her safe place, her forever partner. The surgery was scheduled. 8 hours of cutting, reconstructing, trying to save her life. Diane was terrified. But Robert was there that morning, kissing her forehead before they wheeled her into the "I'll be right here when you wake up," he promised. What Diane didn't know, what she couldn't have known while she was unconscious, her body being cut open to remove cancer, was that Robert left the surgical waiting room 2 hours into her procedure, told the family he was getting coffee, needs some air. He went to the hospital parking garage, met his mistress Jennifer, and had sex with her in his car, while his wife of 40 years was on an operating table fighting for her life. Jennifer wasn't just some random woman. She was Diane's physical therapist, the woman Diane had hired to help her recover after surgery, the woman who would come to their house, help Diane with exercises, tell her she was doing great, smile at Robert like he was such a supportive husband. Jennifer had been sleeping with Robert for 18 months. The affair started long before Diane's diagnosis, but they'd continued it through everything, through the cancer diagnosis, through the surgery planning, through Diane's terror and pain. Diane woke up from surgery in agony, her chest bandaged, drains coming out of her sides, pain so intense she could barely breathe. But Robert was there, holding her hand, telling her how proud he was of her. "You're so brave," he said. "I love you so much." And she believed him. Even drugged, even in pain, she looked at her husband and felt safe. She had no idea that hours earlier he'd been with another woman. No idea that Jennifer would be showing up tomorrow to help with recovery while sleeping with her husband behind her back. The first 3 weeks of recovery were hell. Diane couldn't lift her arms, couldn't shower alone, needed help with everything. Robert helped her to the bathroom, helped her change bandages, brought her medications, And the whole time, he was texting Jennifer, planning their next meeting, counting down the days until Diane would start chemo, hoping it would kill her. Week 3, Diane started noticing things. Robert was on his phone constantly, always texting, always stepping out of the room to take calls. When she asked who it was, he'd say just work stuff or the kids checking in. She didn't question it. She was too tired, too weak, too focused on just surviving each day. One night, Diane couldn't sleep. The pain was bad, and she wanted to Google some information about post-surgery recovery, check if what she was experiencing was normal. Robert was asleep next to her. His laptop was on the nightstand. She opened it, went to Google, and that's when she saw it. iCloud had synced his messages to the laptop. Every text message, every photo, everything. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. Messages to someone named Jean, flirty messages, then explicit messages, then photos. Photos of Robert and Jennifer together, in bed, in his car, at hotels. Diane felt like she was going to throw up, but she kept scrolling. And that's when she found the messages that destroyed her. Robert to Jennifer, once she's dead, we can finally be together. Jennifer to Robert, how long does chemo usually take to kill someone? I looked it up and it said 6 months to 2 years depending on the patient. Robert, her oncologist said if the cancer comes back after surgery, prognosis is 18 months average. So maybe by next year. Jennifer, and then the life insurance? Robert, 2 million. We'll pay off your student loans, buy a house somewhere warm, and never work again. Diane's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the laptop. Her husband of 40 years was planning her funeral, calculating when she'd die, planning a life with another woman, using the money from her death. She kept reading. There were messages from the day of her surgery. Robert sent at 10:47 a.m. while she was in the OR. God, I'm so bored. Wish I was inside you instead of this waiting room. Jennifer, meet me in the parking garage in 10. Robert, on my way. Diane read timestamps showing he'd left the waiting room at 10:50 a.m. and didn't return until 12:14. -1, an hour and 22 minutes. While she was having cancer cut out of her body, he was having sex with her physical therapist. There were more messages, hundreds of them. Robert complaining about having to help her after surgery. She's so needy. I can't wait for this to be over. Jennifer responding, just think about the insurance money. You're doing great. Messages where Robert called her disgusting because of her mastectomy scars. I can't even look at her anymore. She's not the woman I married. Diane sat there in bed, her husband sleeping next to her, reading message after message about how he was waiting for her to die, how Jennifer was helping him plan their future using the money from Diane's death, how they'd been having sex during her surgery, during her recovery, in the house where Diane was recovering from cancer. She got up painful, difficult, but she managed and went to the bathroom. And she threw up, vomited, from emotional pain that was somehow worse than the cancer pain. Because cancer is a disease. Cancer isn't personal, but this betrayal from the man she'd loved since she was 16, this was intentional. This was cruel. Diane looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, bald from starting chemo, scarred from surgery, weak, vulnerable, and she thought about suicide. Just for a moment. I survived cancer for this too. Find out my husband wants me dead. But then something else kicked in. Rage, pure, cold rage. She'd survived cancer. She was a fighter, and she'd be damned if she let these two destroy her. Diane went back to bed, closed the laptop, laid down next to Robert, and she said nothing, not a word. She didn't confront him, didn't cry, didn't scream. She just started planning. For the next 3 weeks, Diane acted completely normal, smiled at Robert, thanked Jennifer when she came for physical therapy sessions, let them both think she had no idea, but she was working. She screenshot every single message, all 2,847 of them, backed them up in 3 different places: cloud storage, external hard drive, printed copies in a safe deposit box at the bank. She hired a private investigator, gave him photos of Robert and Jennifer, told him to document everything. The PI came back with 47 different documented affair meetups, photos of them at hotels, at restaurants, in his car, at her apartment, GPS data from Robert's phone showing he'd been at Jennifer's place over 100 times in 18 months. The PI dug deeper, and he found something that made Diane's blood run cold. Jennifer had done this before 3 times. 3 other cancer patients' husbands. Jennifer specifically targeted vulnerable women with cancer, worked as their physical therapist, seduced their husbands, waited for the women to die or get sicker, then moved on to the next one when it didn't work out. Jennifer was a predator. She'd built a career out of exploiting cancer patients and their families, and Robert had walked right into her trap, so eager to cash in on his wife's death that he didn't care who he was partnering with. Diane had all the evidence she needed. Now she just had to decide how to destroy them. First target, Jennifer's career. Diane filed a formal complaint with the state medical board. Attached all the evidence, the messages, the photos, the PI report showing Jennifer's pattern of targeting cancer patients' husbands. The complaint was 53 pages long, meticulously documented. The medical board launched an immediate investigation. Within 2 weeks, Jennifer's physical therapy license was suspended. Within 2 months, it was permanently revoked. The board's ruling: predatory behavior toward vulnerable patients and their families, breach of medical ethics, exploiting position of trust for personal and financial gain. Jennifer would never work in healthcare again. At 34 years old, her entire career was over. No hospital, no clinic, no private practice would touch her. She was blacklisted. But it got better. 2 other women, previous cancer patients whose husbands Jennifer had seduced, saw the medical board case and came forward. They filed their own complaints, then civil lawsuits. Jennifer was being sued for emotional distress, fraud, and interference with marriage. She'd be in legal hell for years. Next target, Robert. Diane filed for divorce, triggered by a prenuptial agreement from 40 years prior. Robert had insisted on its infidelity clause. If either party cheated, they forfeited all marital assets. Robert's lawyer tried to bluff. "You can't prove infidelity." Diane's lawyer dropped a 400-page evidence binder on the table, screenshots with metadata, GPS-tagged photos, surveillance videos, deleted messages recovered by forensic analysis. Timestamps showed Robert left Diane's surgery to meet Jennifer. Robert's lawyer looked at him and said, "You're fucked." The settlement was brutal. Diane kept the $800,000 house and the $1.20 million in retirement accounts. Robert's $600,000 inheritance, deposited into their joint account, was split as a marital asset. After 40 years, Robert walked away with nothing. When his lawyer argued for support, the judge, citing evidence of Robert plotting his wife's death for insurance, said, "Absolutely not." But Diane wasn't finished. Robert was a hospital administrator at the same hospital where Diane had her cancer surgery, where he'd had sex with Jennifer in the parking garage while his wife was in the OR. Diane sent the complete evidence package to the hospital's board. They fired Robert within 24 hours. A morality clause in his contract made engaging in sexual activity on hospital property, especially during a patient's surgery, grounds for termination with no severance. Worse followed. Hospital administration is a small industry. Word spread. Within weeks, Robert was blacklisted across 3 states. At 64, he had no job, no retirement, no house, no prospects. Too young for Social Security, too old to start over. But Diane had one final, devastating move. She had beaten cancer. She was officially in remission, a survivor. To celebrate, she organized a cancer survivor celebration. She rented a venue, invited 200 friends, family and church community, and even invited Robert, claiming she wanted to reconcile. Robert came, thought this was Diane forgiving him, maybe taking him back. He showed up in a suit, brought flowers, ready to play the supportive husband. The party started. Everyone was there. Robert's parents, Robert's siblings, their kids, their grandkids, friends from for decades of life. Diane stood up to give a speech. "Thank you all so much for being here," she said. "I've been through hell this year. Cancer is a battle won. Wouldn't wish on anyone, but I survived. And I want to thank everyone who supported me through it." She paused, looked directly at Robert, and like my husband. The room went quiet, confused. Robert's smile froze. Diane continued. "My husband Robert told me he'd never leave my side. But while I was in surgery, he left my side to have sex with my physical therapist in the hospital parking garage." Gasps, actual gasps. People's hands went to their mouths. And then, Diane said, he spent the next months texting her about how he hoped the cancer would kill me so they could collect my $2 million life insurance policy. A screen behind her lit up, projected on the wall, huge, for everyone to see the messages. "Once she's dead, we can finally be together. How long does chemo usually take to kill someone? I can't wait for this to be over." The room erupted. People were standing up, yelling at Robert. His own mother walked up to him and slapped him across the face, hard, in front of everyone. "How dare you?" she screamed. "This woman raised your children, stood by you for 40 years, fought cancer, and you were waiting for her to die." Robert's father stood up. "You're not my son anymore. Don't ever contact us again." Their children were crying. Their daughter shouted, "Dad, how could you?" Mom almost died. Robert tried to leave. Couldn't. Too many people blocking him, all of them furious. He just stood there while 200 people who'd known him for decades learned exactly what kind of monster he was. The party ended with Diane surrounded by supporters. People hugging her, crying with her, telling her how brave she was. And Robert slinking out in shame, alone, his entire social circle destroyed. But the karma wasn't done. Robert and Jennifer tried to stay together. They'd lost everything else, might as well have each other, right, wrong. 6 months later, Jennifer cheated on Robert with a younger man, someone with money and a future. When Robert found out, he lost it. "How could you do this to me?" Jennifer laughed in his face. "You're old, broke, and pathetic. I was with you for the insurance money. There's no insurance money, so there's no reason to be with you." She left, blocked him on everything, moved in with the new guy. Robert had a complete mental breakdown, ended up hospitalized, psychiatric hold for suicidal ideation. And here's the beautiful irony, Robert had no insurance. He'd lost his job, lost his benefits, the psychiatric hospitalization, $85,000. Money he didn't have. He was sent to collections, credit destroyed, already broke, now deeply in debt. Robert ended up in a studio apartment in a bad part of town, working at Home Depot at age 65, because no one else would hire him, lifting boxes, helping customers pick out paint, wearing an orange apron and a name tag while his former colleagues were retiring comfortably. And regularly, because the universe has a sense of humor, he'd see Diane around town. She'd drive past in her new Mercedes, bought with his retirement money. She looked healthy, happy, glowing, cancer-free and thriving. His co-workers at Home Depot eventually Googled him, found the local news articles about the cancer cheater, found the viral Facebook posts from the party, found everything. They avoided him. After that, couldn't even look at him the same. 5 years later, the contrast is stark. Diane is 67 now, 7 years cancer-free. She, Reed, a childhood friend who'd been widowed around the same time she divorced Robert. This new husband treats her like a queen, goes to every oncology checkup with her, celebrates every cancer-free anniversary, loves her scars, loves her story, loves her strength. Diane volunteers at cancer support groups now, helps other women navigate treatment, and when she meets women whose husbands are acting distant, whose marriages are struggling under the weight of illness, she tells them her story. Watch for the signs, she says. And if you find betrayal, don't let it destroy you. Let it fuel you. She started a foundation called Survive and Thrive, helps cancer patients with legal issues during treatment, pays for lawyers for women who discover affairs, provides support for patients who need to divorce while sick. Everything Diane wished she'd had. Robert, meanwhile, is 70 now, still working retail because he can't afford to retire, lives alone in that studio apartment. Estranged from his entire family, his parents died without speaking to him again. His children have minimal contact. His grandchildren don't really know who he is. He's invited to nothing, included in nothing, alone. Jennifer married the younger guy, had 2 kids, and has completely blocked Robert from her life. He tried to contact her once, sent a message saying he was sorry, he missed her. She forwarded it to her husband and they laughed about it, then blocked him everywhere. Robert's life is small, sad, lonely. He wakes up, goes to work, comes home, watches TV, sleeps, repeats, no friends, no family, no future, just existence. And every time he sees a Mercedes like the one Diane drives, or a happy older couple at Home Depot, shopping together, or someone mentioning cancer survival, he's reminded of what he lost, what he threw away, what he destroyed chasing an affair with a predator who never cared about him. The final scene of this story takes place at the cancer center where Diane volunteers. She's talking to a newly diagnosed patient, a woman in her 50s, terrified, just heard the words breast cancer for the first time. The woman is crying. I'm so scared. What if my husband can't handle this? What if he leaves me? Diane takes her hand. Then he's not the man you thought he was, and you'll be stronger without him. I promise. You'll survive this. And if you have to survive betrayal too, you'll survive that as well. Because we're fighters. Cancer doesn't get to win. And cheaters definitely don't get to win. The woman looks at Diane, healthy, strong, 7 years cancer-free, wearing a shirt with a pink ribbon, and the word survivor. She asks, did your husband stay? Diane smiles, not a bitter smile, a knowing one. No, he left in every way that matters. But losing him made room for someone who deserves me. And it made me realize how strong I really am. She pulls up her sleeve, shows the woman her tattoo. Got it on her 5-year cancer-free anniversary. It says, I survived cancer. The cheater didn't survive me. And that is what happens when you betray a cancer patient. Robert thought Diane was weak, vulnerable, dying. He forgot that people who fight cancer are the strongest people on earth. They don't give up. They don't quit. And they definitely don't let cheaters win. You know what Grandma always says. Cancer is a fight. Betrayal is a fight. But both of them underestimated one thing: a woman who refuses to die has nothing to lose and everything to win. Diane won. She survived cancer, survived betrayal, and built a better life than Robert could ever dream of. If this story made you furious and then made you want to stand up and applaud, I need you to do something. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and comment the word survivor too. Honor Diane and every person who's fought cancer and come out stronger. Let's flood these comments. Let's show every cancer patient that they're not alone, that they're warriors, that they can survive anything. Remember, folks, I'm bringing you stories of strength and justice every single day. Hit that notification bell next time someone tells you that sickness makes you weak. Remember, Diane, cancer survivors are the strongest people on earth, and they will destroy anyone who underestimates them. This is Grandma reminding you that survivors don't just survive, they thrive. Peace, everyone.